I'm Drea.
I'm Meg.
I'm Tina.
And I'm Jess. And this is Pardon My Stash. Welcome to Pardon My Stash, a podcast about knitting, the fiber arts, and how awesome it is. Before we get into this week's topics, let's share what we're working on now, Drea.
So, since we have last recorded, I have started and finished a hat.
Woohoo!
I made the Key-In hat by Emily Green, and I used a less traveled yarn. I want to say, and I don't have the tag with me right now, but I want to say that the color was Twilight. It was like a dark blue.
Wasn't it Midnight?
I want to say it was Twilight.
It's a dark blue.
Yeah. It's a dark blue. It came out really nice. I'm actually currently blocking it, finally.
Yay!
I actually finished it the day before Rhinebeck, but it was unblocked, so I didn't want to wear it to Rhinebeck. But now I am currently working on Minted by Andrea Mowry, and I am using Juniper Moon Farms in Moonshine and Odang in Desert Rose, I believe. Probably. I inherited the yarn from Meg because
I do not remember. I remember like Odang.
Yeah.
But I could not have told you what the yarns were or where. I just remember I was highly allergic and didn't realize it.
Yeah. So I inherited it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's decadent. I love working with it. It's a really great knit. I'm loving it. I'm loving that I have finished a project and I'm almost done with the second one.
Hey.
It's only been a couple weeks, so woohoo, good for me.
It's a good boost.
Yeah, it is. I needed some quick projects to jumpstart myself.
Sometimes that's what you need.
Meg?
I am currently working on the Owlet sweater by Kate Davies Designs. I've done this before in the kid size for my own child, and I'm making this for a baby in baby size. I'm knitting it out of Critical Hit Dyes Barbarian Bulky in the colorway Cardinal. It's not going as fast as I thought it would. I don't know why. It's still going pretty fast.
Because you keep getting distracted.
I do keep getting distracted.
That's really...
I'm doing that thing where I'm jumping between two patterns at once, like two different sweaters. And this one is, no offense to the designer, it's kind of boring until you get to the actual owl cabling. Before that, it's just stockinette. So it is not holding my attention as well as it should. The other sweater I'm working on is a little bit more interesting, like in structure. That one's Poema by Vera Sanin. So it has a little more like meat to the pattern. This one's like kind of nice for just sitting and knitting because you don't have to think about it.
Goes.
For a sit-in knit, you say?
A sit and knit, I say.
sit-and-knit.
Yes.
Wonder
Sitting
who's
it.
doing that right now.
Well,
Sorry,
my
I had to be really corny.
I'm sitting in it. So are you.
I'm not. What?
That's because Jess is crocheting.
That's fair. Tina.
All right, so since I have spoken on this podcast, I finished my Stormy Sky shawl, and I wore it to Rhinebeck, and it was nice, and I liked it. And actually, I finished it like on time too. Like I had time to block it, and I wasn't rushing the night before. Like, it was nice.
Very good. You didn't give yourself applause.
Give myself.
You
applause.
deserve that applause.
Well, now my daughter has stolen it.
oh,
So,
really?
Yes.
That's a high compliment, though. You know, like if somebody steals your knit, and that was all of Jess's knits back in the day. Her mom took them all.
She's still trying to take them, man.
Yeah. Yeah, my oldest on Halloween saw the shawl and thought that it went with her outfit and has since commandeered it. So now she's wearing it everywhere. And I'm like, you know what? Go with that.
It's being appreciated.
Yeah.
So I don't mind. I also went through and I kind of cleaned up a bunch of random like projects that I had that were just kind of sitting, stuff that I had planned on frogging but hadn't yet. And my Silva cami is currently in permanent timeout because I've tried it on. I put a wire through it and I tried it on. It is massive. It does not fit me at all. I mean, which makes sense because I made it in a larger size when I was larger.
Yeah.
And I just there's so much angst finishing it and taking it apart. So I'm just,
It's just gonna sit in purgatory.
It's just in purgatory, and that's where it will be. So believe it or not, I know this is going to be crazy, but I only technically have 3 whips.
Wow.
I
know.
don't believe you.
I know. So one of them is what I'm working on right now, which is the Wish and Hope sweater by Ann B. Hansen Design. And I'm making it as I'm making kid sizes. So I'm making one in a 3T and one in a 5T. And I'm making it as a thank you to my neighbor who came out of nowhere and just took my kids to school when I had a medical event a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Like basically was just like, okay, yeah, like I'll take care of it for as long as whatever. And I was like, really? And like, this is not that I wasn't shocked because like, I don't think she's a nice person. I was shocked because like, we don't talk like that. Like we're acquaintances at best. So I didn't expect a neighbor to kind of help me out like
That's
that.
that New
So-
England hospitality.
Oh man, it was really nice. So I'm going to make little sweaters for her kids. And that's how I feel about it. So, and
Is that the lady who lives behind you?
yes, with the 2 little girls. So I'm making them matching sweaters.
Nice.
And my mother requested a sweater after she saw Meg's Calliope. So I have to start making that. I haven't actually pulled the yarn for it yet, but I did put it on my Ravelry because I'm definitely going to start doing that because it has taken years for this woman to decide which sweater she actually wants. She keeps changing her mind. I'm like,
That's a good one, though, and the pattern is free.
She
That's
saw
just really nice.
Well, here's the funny part. She saw yours and she was like, "Yeah, look how long the sleeves are." And I was like, "Mom, like I could do that to literally any sweater. It's called customizing.
It's called you just keep knitting.
Just like I could do like any sweater.
But you gotta do like the Meg excessively aggressive blocking.
Yeah, apparently. So that's apparently the
Excessive blocking
thing I need to get into.
We blocked it real aggressively.
I was there to make sure you didn't aggressively block the body, but
Yeah.
In between all of that, I have worked on a pattern. I know it's been a while, but it is called the Very Vital Ribbed Beanie. So it's like my Very Vital, I think, in a sense, because it's a very basic stitch. But I actually finally figured it out. I'm gonna give myself applause on that because it took like a hot minute. Like I thought I finished it. I brought it to Rhinebeck and it turned into a yarmulke, and I was like, this is terrible. So I took that out, redid it, and I was like, okay, this is much better. So I love the way it came out now, and I basically gave it a different brim because it just needed some kind of brim with it. So you can look out for that soon because I have it with my tech editor right now because we had to go back and forth. What about you, Jess?
So I am currently working on a little crochet yarn basket ornament because they're fun and cute and tiny. It's by Donna Wolf. I don't know. I found it online. I think it was for free where I found it. I just put in crochet ornaments and it popped up and I did it. So I I don't really have a lot of information on that front. Except for it's fun and it's cute and it's tiny and I'm almost done with this one.
Haven't you made like 4?
This will be my 3rd.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Really? No, because you made the tiny one.
Oh yes, this
You
will
made
be
the
my
tiny
4th.
one. That
yeah,
is the fun
they tell you to use worsted, but I didn't have that handy when I first found the pattern, so I used fingering weight, and it's super tiny and cute, but it's also super tiny and cute. So I found some worsted weight and made legit, size ornaments. Also, doing potion bottles and stuff because they're fun. And I am also doing the rose hip sweater by Anna Joanna. I think that's how you pronounce it. It might be Johanna. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. And that pattern I got out of the Strands of Joy book. So, but it is also on Ravelry if people are looking for it. It's super cute. I like it. I'm doing that one is in Critical Hit Dyes Namira and a Wild Magic Fade that I did. And then the little yarn baskets, the basket part I'm doing in some beige sugar and cream yarn that I had lying around. And then the little yarn balls that go into it are with random things of Critical Hit dyes I have lying around that I can roll up into teeny tiny yarn balls and stick in a basket. It's a good scrap project.
It actually is. Really.
Like, it really-
for when you have like 5 yards of yarn left.
Yeah, no, it's like perfect.
It's
You
fantastic. You're like,
you
what do I do with this string?
And it's like I make a tiny little yarn ball and stick it in a basket. So yeah, those are my current projects. And I picked up felting, needle felting, which is tons of fun. And I'm gonna pick up stuff to do more of that soon because I made some little birds and now I want to make more. So that is also a thing that's going on. And I'm sitting here thinking, I can dye roving. That's a thing I can do. So we'll see. We'll see how that adventure pans out in the future.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so that's what I'm working on and what everybody else is working on. I know there was a lot to catch up on because you haven't heard from us in a bit. But if you want to see pictures of the current projects or get more information about Pardon My Stash in general, be sure to check out our website, pardonmystash.com, for info, pics, patterns, and yarns. All right, so it has been a while, but we did go to Rhinebeck. We all had a really good time. I know we've met some of you in person now, which is awesome.
That was so cool.
It was really cool. It was great to see you guys and meet and talk, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know. I think I had a great time there. I actually, saw a lot more and I think got a lot more than I have in Rhinebeck in a couple of years. Yeah. It was actually cold.
That was I think the best
just
thing.
that was
Yes. It was like the first Rhinebeck in 3 years that wasn't in the 70s.
There was the whole time we're like, yeah, we're gonna wear our stuff for 0.5 seconds to get a picture, and then we're gonna be walking around in t-shirts because it's gonna be hot, like it always is, and it wasn't. It was actually sweater weather. So we did get to do that. So that was awesome. Did enjoy that. Yeah, the only thing I was kind of sad about when we went, there was only leaves on the bottom of the Rhinebeck tree.
That was kind of a surprise. I mean, it shouldn't have been because it's been raining constantly.
It has been raining constantly.
But yeah, the Rhinebeck tree was a little worse to wear this year.
There was enough to still get our nice pics, but we were like, okay, let's angle the camera a little bit here. Don't look at the top. It's all good. It's all fine. I don't know. What was everyone's favorite parts? Favorite thing?
Besides meeting people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to bestow upon one of our listeners a very wonderful gift. Probably my favorite project that I've ever made. Definitely for this year than I was for years past, but definitely my favorite thing that I've ever made. I made a Flavor Flav clock. Made it a Pardon My Stash
straight out of the 90s.
That thing was legit.
Straight out
there
of
was
the
so
90s.
much effort went into that.
I had so
clock.
much fun making it.
It's a one of a kind item.
It is.
It'll be worth millions one day.
Probably not. But I was impressed with myself and I loved it, and I can't remember why.
I think that's
We
my
had
favorite
talked about
part is
it.
that none of us remember the origin
No.
of the Flava Flav clock.
I know that we talked about it, and then I was reminded of it, so I
I'm so glad you were reminded of it.
I know.
Because I had forgotten about it entirely.
No, it was definitely a live chat many moons ago.
Yeah.
It was, but
that we had on
remember.
on our membership, and Kara
but I
got
don't-
the clock.
Care about the clock.
Don't remember anything else
Couldn't tell
about
ya. Yeah, why?
the prompt
No,
of that.
but it was real funny.
It was.
And she wore that thing with pride.
She did. But it was fully functional, and it even went off at 12 o'clock for our...
With an alarm, which was hilarious.
For
With
our
perfect
meetup.
timing.
It was real good.
I planned it that way.
Right as the
it was an art
question,
piece.
is it a real clock, went off, and then
It sure was.
it started alarming.
Pretty good.
And you're-
Bedazzled and mustachioed.
It was nice to gathering in one spot because I also feel like other members and people who listen to our podcast were able to meet each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was oh wait, you listen too? Oh, okay. And it's I feel like we facilitated
Yeah.
friendships.
And the people who see each other on the live chats once a month,
Yeah.
and getting to meet in person,
Yeah.
that was really neat. We had nice, discussions, and we had a good time. It was really neat to see everybody and see everybody's stuff, like what everybody had made for Rhinebeck. Was also really
I also
exciting.
got to be super creepy.
So
You were real
shady.
creepy. It was awesome.
You were
Shady.
so
It was
shady.
awesome.
I was-
Drea was handing out contraband.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
Everyone looks so confused until you gave them the contraband.
It was real funny.
They're like, what? What's happening?
I will not apologize for being myself.
Crimes.
It was good.
The
Not
fun is in
really.
the crimes.
Secret ingredient is crime. But not really.
You don't know. I mean, it wasn't not crime.
Listen, don't get us taken off the air here. All right. So this week I wanted to talk about some commonly mixed up terms in mainly knitting and crochet, but probably some other fiber related things.
I feel like I have a pretty good handle on this topic, but you know what? I'm willing to listen. Surprise me.
So I wrote some down that I know like cause some confusion or people mix up a lot.
I am never confused.
I'm never confused.
Wow, that's a lie.
One of the big ones, and I actually run into a lot, is weight versus ply of yarns. A lot of people think like the more ply something has, the thicker the yarn, and that's not the case. So the weight of the yarn is basically how thick or thin your yarn is, how many wraps per inch you're going to get and whatnot. Well, the ply is how many individual strands of this yarn are twisted together in order to make the yarn. Sometimes more ply can make it thicker, but you can have a 4-ply lace weight yarn.
That happens a lot.
And you can have
honestly.
a 2-ply bulky. We have a 2-ply bulky.
We had a craft fair we did last year. This lady came up and she pulled some barbarian off the pegboard, and she was insisting to us that it was 4-ply, like insisting, because there was no way that it could be that thick and be 2-ply.
Yep. So
yeah, it is. It's. I didn't know that was a common misconception, but apparently it is. That
Yeah,
the thicker it is, the more plies it must have.
it's not, because your plies can actually be very thin.
Isn't roving technically no ply?
Roving is
Single ply.
Single ply.
Single ply,
Yeah.
Single ply.
So it's
Yes.
like that doesn't just for
Yeah.
that.
Right,
Like,
right.
you know,
Like if you
it's
buy
not-
like pencil roving yarn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's.
But you can also have
it
single
hasn't been
ply
plied.
and it's fingering weight. Like
Right.
so it is. So it's
It's got nothing to do with
so
the
your
thickness.
weight and your ply are different. So don't go off of that to assume that you're using the correct weight of a yarn.
To piggyback on that too, like if a pattern calls for a specific ply, you want to pay attention to that.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Because you might think like it doesn't matter, it's a fingering weight yarn, like a fingering weight is a fingering weight. It's not. You're going to get a totally different texture. And you may not be happy with it. Not to say that you can't do that. You
Just be
absolutely
aware
can.
that it can change the look of
It
the
may
pattern.
not come out the way that you think it's going to.
because plies can affect what it looks like just because of the way it's twisted
And
the
how
way
it feels.
works. Well, honestly, like they say a lot of times, if you're doing a lace, a 2-ply is good because it actually works into a lace kind of stretching pattern. So it's like you will see patterns that do that. So that is something to at least be aware of and pay attention to. If it requires it, just know if you don't follow it, that it may come out looking different. Again, not to say that it'll come out bad or it won't work. It's just it will look different than what the designer is.
This
going
is where
for.
I come in with everybody's favorite swatch. Swatch your fabric.
No.
No.
Fine. If it comes out different than you wanted, don't blame me.
I never complain.
You don't. You don't. I will give you that.
I just get what I get, and you know
You can't
what?
get upset.
You know what? Yeah, I was gonna say if
that was
is
your call.
choice,
Nope.
that's the choice you made.
But
Right.
I never do get upset.
No, and that's hey, you know what? If you are a process knitter and you want to rip it out as many times as it takes, like shine on, you crazy diamond. But
Thank you.
if you, I'm serious.
Me too.
But if you are the type of person like this is me and gets very upset when the fabric that you're working on doesn't come out the way you want, then you know what? I got no one to blame but myself if I didn't swatch. So
Going along with the weight versus ply, ply versus twist. Ply and twist are two different things. So ply, again, a ply is a strand inside of the yarn. And the twist is the direction in which those plies are twisted to create said yarn. They call them S-twist or Z-twist because of the way you like look at them. And usually most yarns are plied in an S-twist.
now I'm looking at mine to see like which
I'm
way.
not gonna lie. I've never heard of of different twists in yarn.
I had heard of
I'm
this.
actually paying attention now.
Oh,
I wasn't before,
opposed
but
to
now I am.
wow. Wow.
So here's the thing. Most yarns are an S twist, which is great for knitting because most of the time while you're knitting in an S twist, you're actually, just because of the way you are knitting, you are twisting the yarn further. So it makes the plies stronger. In crochet, because you kind of go the other direction, you have a tendency to untwist said yarn, which is why you find that you may be splitting your yarn more. A lot of times if you find out you're like knitting or crocheting, whichever you're doing, and you're splitting the yarn a lot, it may actually have to do with the twist because of the way you are knitting or crocheting, whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise, you are untwisting or twisting your yarn.
How do you tell the difference when you're buying your yarn?
You kind of look at it, and so
Most of them are S twists.
We will post pictures of this on the blog for you guys at home.
So if you look at your yarn and it dips down on the right side, that's an S twist. If it dips down on the left side, it's a Z twist.
But yeah, so that's why if you find that as you're knitting or crocheting and your yarn is coming untwisted, it may be because it is just because of the twist of the yarn and actually not anything you are doing. That's why they suggest if you can, you learn how to do combination knitting, which is when you knit going counterclockwise, and when you purl clockwise. And this helps. In one direction, you're like twisting it further. In another direction, you're untwisting it. So you're not like either making your yarn too tight or too loose as you're...
I'm probably not going to learn how to do that.
It's real easy. You know how you do it? That is you purl the old way you used to purl and you knit through the back loop.
Oh, Lord.
That is a combination knitting. You purl clockwise.
I don't even know if I could do that anymore.
you-
Like, I stopped doing that a while ago.
And
so.
then you knit through the back loop. But just something to be aware of. And it was like an interesting thing because I was like, oh, hey, that is kind of neat if your yarn is splitting to kind of look at and be like, oh, maybe this is why. And it's nothing that you're
It's
actually
not
doing.
me just stabbing.
Here's one for the embroiderers out there. Embroidery floss versus an embroidery thread. A floss is 6 threads plied together. So when they say get your embroidery floss, that is like the ones you buy at the store that are all plied together. And if they say use a thread or 3 threads, you split your floss into the threads that you need. So those are actually
Doing
2
some
different things.
Equal opportunity fiber
Listen,
discussion
that's
tonight.
fiber art stuff. I have used both of these. So going on as well, lace weight versus a lace pattern. You do not need to
Pay
use...
attention, Drea. You need
I
to know this
the
one.
difference.
You do not
You'll need
need
this one.
lace weight yarn to make a lace pattern.
Correct.
I make lace patterns all the time.
See,
You can make a lace pattern in bulky.
but apparently
Yeah.
some people thought that it's like they'll never do lace because they don't like using lace weight. And it's like that's not so. A lace pattern is a pattern that uses yarn overs. That's basically it. It's
There's holes
basically
in
it. The pattern.
Deliberate
I
holes.
looked up the definition and I liked it because it was a pattern that incorporates artful eyelets.
Ooh.
I like
I
that.
Right?
like that a lot. That's
I like to
fancy.
think of it as purposeful holes.
Artful eyelets. I was like, oh, that sounds so pretty
sounds
and
so
quaint.
pretty.
fancy. Yeah.
Sounds a
Whereas
lot
we
more
all
fancy.
know, if you've listened to this podcast, that lace weight is a super thin yarn.
I don't like it.
Super thin.
We
What?
know Drea.
I don't.
You
Like it.
don't what? Really?
I don't like
Damn.
it.
But for those of you that don't like the lace weight yarn, you can find lovely lace patterns that use, larger
All
weights.
different kinds, yeah.
So
Just be aware that a bulky lace is going to look
Weird.
different. Maybe not weird, but it's definitely going to look different.
it's going to look different.
It's not.
True.
It's not going to look the same as like a fingering weight
It's
lace.
true. Another one I have is, and this one I always mix this up even to this day, Intarsia versus Fair Isle.
Oh yeah.
So both are color work. Intarsia uses separate color blocks that are usually put on their own separate bobbins, and you basically have to join the yarns together so they don't fall out of your pattern in some special joining way that I have no idea what it is. I don't like Intarsia because that's a lot of ends to weave in. That's a lot of work. They look beautiful, but I look at the inside of those projects and I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot of different yarns and bobbins and pieces that I feel like
So if you
just
don't
blow
like
my
weaving
mind.
your ends, don't do Intarsia.
I'm not gonna lie. I've been knitting for almost 20 years at this point, and I have never had the desire to knit anything intarsia, and there's a sweater pattern that I now like am dying to knit. So that may actually be like my foray into intarsia. We'll see what happens.
I would just want to just carry the work all the way around. But here's the thing with intarsia, you actually have the ability to use more colors. So Fair Isle is when you basically carry the other colors around your entire work. And with Fair Isle, because you're carrying it around and you have to kind of make sure you're not leaving these huge gaps in the back of your work, or it may fall apart, you can usually only get up to 3 separate colors before you're going to have problems doing that. In Tarja, you can have probably about as many colors as you want, depending on how it works, because they're all on separate bobbins.
So if I want to make a colorwork sweater of Cisco's face, I'm probably going to have to do Intarsia.
You got to do
You would
Intarsia
probably
for
have to
that.
do the only
You're
thing
probably
that's
not going to be able to do Fair
that
Isle.
is tough with Intarsia, though. See, Intarsia is great for block colors. It is tougher to do that when you're doing like
The pixelated kind of look.
yeah, like a pink and then a green and then a pink and then a blue and then it, like that
Doesn't
gets
work.
hard.
Yeah,
So
you
It'll
want
be
blocks.
fun.
so you'd have your work cut out trying to figure out exactly how you want to
I believe you can do it
wanna
though.
do that.
I'm
You know
gonna
what? You
figure
can
it
do
out.
whatever you want.
It's either gonna be the logo or the face or both. I don't know. So we're gonna.
I feel
figure
like
it
if you
out,
can
though.
work it out between like 3 colors or something, I feel
Yeah.
like you can figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Make the magic happen.
But yeah, those are the differences between Intarsia and Fair Isle. Fair Isle is usually 2 strands at a time and you carry your yarn all the way around. And Intarsia, you have a ton of little bobbins of different colors and you can have a whole bunch of colors and blocks, and that gives you that option. The last one I have that's commonly mixed up is the knitting style versus a knitting method. So a style is how you hold your yarn. That's like continental, English, Portuguese, Highland, Russian, etc. It's basically like how you hold your yarn, how you hold your tension,
Portuguese, you say?
etc. Well, yeah, because it's like different ways to hold it. Like I didn't realize this. Like I didn't realize Highland was a thing, and I looked that up.
I'd never heard of
They
Highland.
carry the yarn on their hip.
Huh.
And they do it that way. Like they knit on their hip. And I still like I watched it and I don't know how they do it and it is amazing. But you know what it is? That's where they don't like circulars. Because you need the needles to you basically use it braced against your hip to knit.
I've heard about holding, like you got to use straight needles, but holding a straight needle under your armpit,
yeah.
and then you're basically like knitting.
It's sort of
into
like
it.
that,
Yeah.
only they do it. It's like
I can't even
it's like held on.
imagine.
It's weird. It's cool to look at because I'm like, how are they doing that? But that is a style. That is how you hold your needles, how you hold your yarn, how you like get your tension, etc. The method is the direction that you put your yarn. So those ones there are 3. There's Western, which Western, the Western method, and that's the most common. That's when you throw or you do your yarn, it goes counterclockwise around your needle. That's the most common. Eastern is when your yarn goes clockwise around your needle. And then combination, which I brought up earlier, is when you do one part one way and the other part the other way.
It's true. That's Portuguese. That is what we do. That's how you do it. There's the purling and knitting is 2 different ways.
Yeah, and it is. It's because you're knitting. You would knit counterclockwise, then you'd purl clockwise. So
Correct.
you're throwing the yarn separate ways over the needle.
Because you're kind of forward or back, so it depends on where you're sitting.
So those are the 3 methods, and you can do any of those 3 methods along with whatever style you're doing it. And sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, and sometimes like certain ones are just dang impossible depending on your style.
So you're telling me that I knit English Western style.
Yes.
English Western sounds like an oxymoron,
Well,
but I love it.
that's
It's very cool.
It's right up there with spaghetti westerns.
spaghetti western. And yeah, so those are all the commonly mixed up terms that I had found that I was aware of, that I myself had, or that I found and thought were pretty interesting. So I don't know if there's anything anybody else has that mixed them up.
Gauge versus ease.
Oh, Yeah.
Gauge versus ease is a big one. The gauge is how many stitches you have to the inch, and the ease is how many more inches you have to your usually your bust line.
Yeah.
If you're knitting for a woman, if it says you have a 4-inch or +4 ease, that means you got to add 4 inches to your bust line. If you want it to look like the model, again, your mileage may vary. You may, and that's honestly, I think, one of the most fun things about knitting your own garments is that you can just be like, you know what, I don't want to do waist shaping.
Well, you could look at it.
I don't want to do that.
And see the picture, and they could be like, yeah, this was done with 2 inches of ease. And you could be like, yeah, but I want that like on my boobs. And just...
Right. If you like a more fitted sweater, or you like a looser sweater, or whatever it is, you can kind of go from there.
Or it could be like negative ease, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna add 5 inches because I want it slouchy.
The gauge does help you find the correct ease and make sure that you're getting the correct ease, but the ease itself is, either if you want it a little bigger, you go plus. If you want it smaller, you go minus, and if you want it skin tight, you go even more negative than. That's not me. I don't make.
It's really about the drape,
sweaters.
like almost like how it's laying.
Right.
On
How is it falling against you?
I just want to specify that because it's not like you can't just like necessarily give it like positive ease and turn something into a plus size. Like you could.
No. I'm not talking about designing. I'm talking about if you want the sweater to be bigger on you, a little baggier, and less fitted.
Yes.
But no, that's actually a really good point of a misconception is that adding inches to the bust line does not make something plus size. It does not. Like a lot more work goes into grading a pattern to make it a bigger size.
Just word to the wise.
It's got to be I was reading something the other day where somebody said like that the pattern was graded for bust sizes, not arms. So one size for the arm, then you wind up with something that fits great in the bust, but you've got little spaghetti arms, and that's not a great look. That's not an optimal look.
If you don't see different stitch counts on the arms, then you know they didn't grade it for the arms.
It's not graded.
It's not. Like if you have the exact same, then it's probably not okay.
Right.
Imagine that bigger bust, bigger
No, everyone has the same size arms, regardless.
All
of
the
bust
arms
size.
are the same.
we were all the same.
Oh, Lord.
My arms are shorter.
No, but that is another thing too. Is that if you are, you are knitting a pattern, you should look at the arm measurements. I feel like a lot of people don't look at the arm measurements, and they just assume that the bust and the arm measurements are going to correlate, and that's not always the case for people, especially if you have really muscular arms. If you lift weights and things like that, your upper arms could be bigger than your bust size would. The designer says your bust size should dictate.
Yeah.
So, and you can fix that, when you go to pick up the stitches for the underarms and everything like that. But you should pay attention, make sure that you're knitting the right size arms.
And that's all the time we have for this week. For additional content and opportunities to connect with the cast, be sure to check out our website at pardonmystash.com. And remember to tune in next time for more tips, knits, and wits at Pardon My Stash.